Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Liam Rose. I'm an author, mentor, life coach, motivational speaker, evangelist, musician, and activist. In this podcast and audio, we're going to be sharing a message for Spiritually Helping Other People podcast. I've been sharing this podcast to inspire humanity to learn about Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha. I've been sharing this podcast to inspire humanity to learn about faith, spirituality, and religion. And I've been sharing this podcast to inspire humanity to learn about helping other people, giving back and making a difference. And I've also been sharing this podcast to inspire humanity to learn about spiritual change. Now, within this message and within this podcast audio, we're going to be talking about spiritual dukkha. Now, this is from the Buddhist religion of Buddhism, and we're going to be talking about dukkha. So, the first question is what is spiritual dukkha? So it says that spiritual dukkha is the profound sense of dissatisfaction, unease, or not quite righteousness in life, rooted in impermanence and attachment. So when we have spiritual dukkha, it means we're living life of suffering, pain and adversity. So it's very important to understand that in life, everything is always changing, everything is always moving forward, and nothing stays the same. So if we're experiencing suffering, pain, and adversity within our lives, and we're going through spiritual dukkha because we're attaching to things and we're not understanding the root of impermanence, then we start to suffer within our lives. We start to go through pain, hurts, feelings and emotions, and depression and unhappiness and sadness because we're living in suffering, pain and adversity. So in spiritual dukkha, what the Buddha was teaching us in the Buddhist religion is basically understanding that dukkha is not really how life should be. You shouldn't be living in suffering, pain, and adversity. We need to find a way of overcoming that and transforming that and changing that within our lives. So the spiritual dukkha is maybe a part of life that we have suffering, pain, and adversity within our lives, but we don't want to stay there. We don't want to live in that situation. We don't want to be having our lives where we're having spiritual dukkha. So this is when it comes to basically learning how to overcome spiritual dukkha. So basically, how to overcome spiritual dukkha is you need to find a spiritual practice. So there's 5 spiritual practices that can help you: prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, journaling. The 5 spiritual practices. Now, we're doing 5 spiritual practices. You're connecting to Jehovah, Jesus Christ, and Buddha in faith, spirituality, and religion. The 5 spiritual practices are the way to understand who you are as a human being. By going on the journey of just doing the 5 spiritual practices, you're learning about yourself, you're understanding yourself, and you're learning that life is very short, life is very precious, how we live our life matters. The spiritual dukkha of our lives need to be transcended into heaven and nirvana, which is the spiritual enlightenment. So we need to basically understand that dukkha is not how we should live our lives, and by doing the 5 spiritual practices, we're connecting to who we are. Normally spiritual change comes when we know who we are, so we need to know ourselves, discover the no self and selflessness. Now, most of spiritual dukkha comes from the self. It comes from your own natural human being self, so who you are as a human being. Because you're attaching to things like family, friends, relatives, possessions, houses, cars, and money and income and materialistic things, the self is not understanding the impermanence of it, because in life nothing stays the same, it's always moving forward. So with spiritual dukkha, what we need to learn is that if we want to transcend it and overcome it, we need to find who we are as a human being. So our spiritual life purpose or spiritual calling and our spiritual divine assignment. When we detach ourselves from ourselves, like when we don't think about who we are as a human being, what we've been through, what we've gone through, what we've suffered, what pain we've gone through, what adversity we've gone through, that's how we slowly change the spiritual dukkha and become spiritually enlightened. It does take some time to go through the journey of spiritual dukkha to spiritual enlightenment. But this is a journey you really, really want to do, and you really want to find it in life, because if you don't, you're always going to be living in spiritual dukkha, suffering, pain, and adversity. So first, what we need to do is do the 5 spiritual practices: prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, journaling. Once we do the 5 spiritual practices and then develop a relationship with ourselves, then we need to find faith, spirituality, and religion. So you could choose a different religious belief if you want. You can have a faith, you can have spirituality. Now, that's going to help you to understand more about who you are and about some of the life lessons that are in spirituality, faith, and religion. Once we've learnt that, how to really transcend the dukkha that you've experienced within your life is by doing the 5 levels of helping other people. Level 1, volunteering. Level 2, jobs, careers, employment. Level 3, business, entrepreneurship. Level 4, faith and spiritual. Level 5, spiritually helping other people who helping other people. Now, when we talk about Jesus Christ and Buddha in faith and spirituality and religion, Buddha transcended the self to the no self and discovered nirvana in heaven and spiritual enlightenment and spiritual attainment. So the Buddha basically showed us the path to overcoming dukkha and to overcoming suffering, pain, and adversity. And what made the Buddha's life so amazing is that the Buddha was teaching for over 35 to 40 years in his ministry and in his monastery. When we think about Jesus Christ came into the world. He was a spiritual human being, free from sin, free from corruption, free from destruction. And when Jesus was living his life, most of his life was focused in his ministry on helping other people, helping the animals, helping the universe. And then obviously Jesus Christ did suffer on the cross when he passed away, due to people obviously wanting to kill him. And obviously Jesus died on the cross and then rose from the dead because he was the Son of God, and now he's in heaven and nirvana with Jehovah and also Buddha. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, spiritual dukkha can be transcended into spiritual enlightenment. Jesus Christ was talking about salvation. Buddha was talking about spiritual attainment and spiritual enlightenment and nirvana in heaven. So the only way we can transcend the spiritual dukkha we've experienced is by living a life of meaning and value. And what gives life meaning and value is basically helping other people, giving back and making a difference. Also, with helping other people, giving back and making a difference, we need to obviously transcend and transform our psyche and our psychological mind. So when we go for a spiritual change by doing the 5 spiritual practices and the 5 levels of helping other people, our spirituality is changing, our faith is changing, our religion's changing, and that changes the psyche and the psychological mind. When we change the psyche and the psychological mind, which takes a lot of time to process and to do, then the self turns into the no self. And when we discover the no self, selflessness, and know thyself, then we discover who we are as a human being, our true potential, spiritual life purpose, spiritual calling, spiritual divine assignment. So spiritual dukkha is not how we should live our life. We should not live our life in suffering, pain, and adversity. And what gives you real meaning and what gives you value is helping other people, giving back and making a difference. So within the spiritual dukkha you have within your life, you want to become a spiritual teacher and help other people in what they're going through, because there's millions, hundreds and thousands of people that are still experiencing spiritual dukkha because they haven't done the 5 spiritual practices or the 5 levels of helping other people. You need to help those people, you need to support those people, you need to encourage those people. But remember, with spiritual dukkha, that you want to make sure that you've overcome it yourself first before you help other people. So that's going to take some time, patience, commitment, dedication, and passion. Once you transcended your own spiritual dukkha and gone on the journey of finding who you are, then that's when you get opportunities to help other people, give back and make a difference. And spiritually helping other people is the way you transcend all your spiritual dukkha. then your spiritual karma comes into your life with more meaning and value, then you actually create positive good karma, which is spiritual karma, which is a life that is focused on the actions you do. So your actions become pure, it becomes faithful, it becomes spiritual, it becomes truthful, and it becomes enlightening, right? So my message is simple. We don't need to live in spiritual dukkha. There is a way of transcending it. If we go for a spiritual change by doing the 5 spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, journaling, and then starting doing the levels of 5 levels of helping other people: level 1, volunteering; level 2, jobs, careers, employment; level 3, business, entrepreneurship; level 4, faith and spiritual; level 5, spiritually helping other people, then we start to transcend the spiritual dukkha into spiritual karma. And our spiritual karma is our spiritual legacy, the actions that we're doing on earth. And Jehovah, Jesus Christ, and Buddha doesn't want us to live in suffering. They want us to transcend that, overcome that, transcend everything that we've been through as a human being, and discover the no self, selflessness, and know thyself. So go on the journey. Go on the journey of discovering who you are. Go on the journey of transcending the spiritual dukkha you've experienced into the no self, selflessness, and know thyself, and find your spiritual enlightenment and spiritual attainment. The heaven and nirvana can be on earth. It's not something that happens when you pass away. It's something that you can have while you're on earth. Spiritual enlightenment and spiritual attainment. But you have to find that from teaching and helping other people on their journey. Because you've been through suffering, pain, and adversity and spiritual dukkha, that gives you the ability to teach, and that gives you the ability to help other people on their journey and on their path. So remember, no matter what you've been through in your life, and no matter how deep or suffering or painful or adversities your spiritual dukkha is, everything can be used for good. Everything can be used to help other people. Everything can be used to find who you are as a human being. So just remember, spiritual dukkha is basically rooted from dissatisfaction, not understanding impermanence, and being attached to certain things. So you want to try to find within your life to not be attached, to not be dissatisfied, and to find happiness and joy and meaning and value through simple things in life. And by doing the 5 spiritual practices and 5 levels of helping other people, you can transcend spiritual dukkha into spiritual karma and spiritual enlightenment and spiritual attainment. So I hope this has helped now, and I hope you understand that spiritual dukkha is not how our life should be. We should be spiritually awakened and spiritually liberated, spiritually free and spiritually enlightened. So remember, just focus on your spiritual life journey in just going for a spiritual change of your psyche and psychological mind. If your psyche and your psychological mind changes, then your whole life changes, and then you'll find spiritual enlightenment and spiritual attainment. Okay, thank you for listening now. I hope you do go on the journey of transcending spiritual dukkha. And just remember, the Buddhist teachings can help you in so many different ways when it comes to learning about it, understanding it, and processing it as well. So read some of the scriptures in the Buddhist religion, talk to some Buddhists, talk to some monks, talk to some nuns, and find your own way of overcoming your own spiritual dukkha. Okay, thank you for listening now. Bye now, thanks.